I have a love-hate relationship with sewing. The technical limitations of it in terms of getting the fit right, the fusses of working with certain fabrics, and sometimes the construction methods. But I love the possibilities that sewing creates, and that's what brings me back to it each time. I love that it has no limits. I can imagine something in my head, find a pattern, or make my own, and it becomes a reality. I've been on and off sewing for the past 17 years, and I learned how to sew when I was 8 years old from kids' sewing books and lessons from my mom, who's an avid sewer and quilter. Of all the crafts I've done over the years, it's the one that has just stayed with me because for me, I believe it's allowed me the most self-expression. I've always had a passion for fashion, and this translated into my first clothing project I made when I finally gained the confidence to make one. That was a long purple floral drawstring skirt, and it was bold, it was loud, and I loved it. And little did I know that this was going to be the start of my sewing and style evolution. Fast forward a few years to high school, I'm shop at Goodwill, and I'm buying jeans to tear up and turn to skirts, shirts to attach grommets to, and pretty much anything that I can refashion something new with my sewing machine. And around that time, a movie came out called Lord of the Rings, and I was obsessed, to say the least. What I loved the most were the costumes from the movies, and pretty much anything that you would wear, at a Renaissance fair, or imagine in picture, movies of Arthur and Guinevere. I love those styles of dresses. So I discovered online that there were forums for people just like me who were completely obsessed with the costumes. And what I loved is that they would discuss and dissect the different components of the dresses and figure out how to recreate them. This opened up so many possibilities for me. I didn't have to stick with the patterns that they sold in the pattern books at Joann's. I could make my own, just a little imagination, some technical know-how, and I began turning out patterns and costumes inspired by what my online friends were doing. And I wore these to school, in high school, by the way. And it let me create an identity for myself. Some people thought what I wore was really cool, and I know there were more than a few people who thought I was that weird girl that wore those really weird dresses to school. And you know what? That was okay. I didn't really care what anyone else thought of what I was doing. I was happy. What mattered was what I thought. When I tell my friends, now that I used to, sew and wear these things to high school, they usually say, "Oh my God, your parents let you wear that?" And I just say, yeah, of course. I mean, let's think of it. There were way worse things I could have been doing at the time, like getting into drugs, ditching class, whatever his bad kids did. I don't really know. I wasn't one of those kids. But you know what? I was expressing myself at the time of who I was, and my parents encouraged that. And I know some of them, they thought that some of the things I made were a little weird and a little out there, but I was happy, And I look back at these things now, these dresses I used to wear, I'm like, oh my God, I would never have the guts to wear these in public. But you know what? That's just where I was at the time. I've gone through periods of my life when I've done very little sewing, such as when I first started college, and then again when I graduated and got my first job and started working. But whenever I come back to my first love, sewing, it's like things haven't changed. It's kind of like that friend that people have. They don't see them for 5 years, and then when they finally do, it's like old times again. And they're catching up right where they left off. That's what I love about sewing. My style has changed, and my priorities have changed, and we're all like that. We're all in a different place than we were 5, 10 years ago. And sewing is the one craft I know that can evolve so dramatically. And when I come back to it, it's still there with me. It's still completely relevant. I still channel the same things from my early sewing days. I love loud, bold prints and colors, and I like design elements that really bring something from being kind of basic and boring to kind of chic and one of a kind. Every time I sit down at my sewing machine, I'm reminded of the fact that I'm making this with my own 2 hands, and this is something that no one else is going to have. I mean, how many people, other than us sitting on a stage, can really say that are out there in the street? Not many people. So basically, let me ask you this morning. When you got up, how did you figure out what you're going to wear in your closet? Maybe you reached for that sweater that you like because it's kind of cold out today, or you got that dress that you put it on, you feel really confident when you wear it, and just feel like nothing's going to get in your way. Whether you like it or not, clothing defines who we are, what we do, and where we are in our lives. Some people really don't care about what they put on their back, and that's okay. They'd rather focus their energy elsewhere. That's still shown through what they choose to wear. Michael Kors, the fashion designer, he wears the same thing every day. He wears a black t-shirt, a blazer, and a pair of jeans, because that way he can focus on the clothes that he decides to send down the runways each season. Me, I couldn't imagine my life without sewing and clothes and expressing myself, through my clothes, like the dress I'm wearing right now. That's how I express myself. Some people choose to, write words on a page or take pictures with their camera and do some Photoshop tricks. And, me, I decide to use rayon jersey and a zigzag stitch on my Bernina 1005 because sewing, for me, is a vehicle that creates my self-expression. So I also write a blog called Sew Wrong because I make a lot of sewing mistakes. I like to chronicle it. And you can also visit at sewwrong.blogspot.com. Thank you.